Hi everyone, we are in the Coliseum Theatre in central London on St Martin's Lane, and we're talking to Claire Wickes, who is the Principal Flute of English National Opera, and we're very excited.
I'm very excited to be here.
What's the best thing about your job?
There are so many good things, it's really hard to answer. The best thing is that I think the opera is the most incredible repertoire, and I actually feel quite bereft on behalf of anyone that's never got to experience it. And the fact that so many musicians can go through their whole career and never play opera is really sad because it's so fantastic.
Did you go to see operas before you joined the company, or was it something new for you?
It was completely new, and
That's
I probably
really cool.
probably shouldn't even admit this, but I mean, I'd been to one opera in my life. I'd been to the Magic Flute, actually, and I did love that, but it felt totally abstract.
Yeah.
And I had this perception that opera's for rich people and posh people, and I mean, being at E&O has proven to me that I couldn't have been more wrong. To do a very quick plug, you can get there's 500 tickets for under £20 at every single performance. It's cheaper than going for most meals out in London, or any show you can name. I just think I never thought it was accessible, and so I never thought it was an option for me.
Yeah.
So that was something I never listened to, I never thought about going to, and now I just think I could have missed out, and I've been so lucky to end up in this world.
And now, what would you say is the least favourite thing about your job? Or your work, playing the flute, because I know that you still do other stuff as well. Sometimes when you've got time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a real perk of the job, that you can still go and do other things.
Yeah.
The least favourite thing, I would say, you have to spend a lot of time in the pit, which is exactly as it sounds. You are underground, there are no windows, no light, so sometimes you'll spend a whole day and you think, I have not seen any natural light today. Yeah,
especially when it gets to winter, when you're leaving in darkness and then...
Yeah, so it's not good for your circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
And it does make socialising a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people say that it's a perfect job if you've got a family, because actually they can do the school run, put young kids to bed, and then you come out to work. But if you're wanting to see friends and go out, then you are working pretty much every evening.
Yeah.
So I think that would probably be it. And it can be frustrating. Sometimes there's just the most fantastic melodies that are being sung, and you just want to play them yourself. Yeah. Though on the flute, you do often get to do that as well.
You do sometimes, don't you?
Get all the best
you
solos.
can always play those solos as a warm-up in your practice.
Totally do that.
Do you do that?
Yeah. Do you know that book, Tone Development Through Interpretation?
I love that book.
It's fantastic.
I'll put the link below. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's really good, and it's got loads of opera tunes in it.
There's quite a lot of Traviata and stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, loads of Traviata, and then there's loads of just the Verdi operas, and all those tunes that you kind of wanted to be a flute solo but weren't. Then it's got all of those in there, so it's quite nice.
Brilliant. Do you think that working with singers has had an impact on your flute playing?
Massively, yes.
In what way?
I think listening to singers is the single best way of learning how to play a melody. Because the control that they have over a phrase, and the way that they can take the listener from the start of a phrase right through to the very end, and that phrase could be minutes long, and that they can do that and take these breaths that just don't break it at all. And I think, that's a real skill that we can constantly strive for on an instrument, to make it sound like the voice. And funny enough, I think singers are always doing the opposite and trying to make their voice sound like an instrument. We can all kind of learn from each other. Being here and seeing some of the things they do, I have just such a massive admiration for singers as well. Because I think it's one thing to sing a phrase like that and to make a beautiful melody, but to do it whilst you're hanging upside down, halfway up a ladder or something.
In the crazy costume.
It's madness.
You know, the other thing that I noticed, like when I've come to watch opera, that I found really helpful for my playing is just the way that they connect the breath and the sound. Yeah. It's not two separate things. It's really part of the same thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And, to watch that is just... to see it happen, you only really understand it, I think, when you see it happen.
Well, the physicality of it as well.
Exactly.
They've really got that connection between the body and the sound.
Yes.
And actually, I think the flute is one of those instruments where we use our body the most, because all of our resonance comes from us. I mean, we've only got this metal tube.
Yeah.
It's almost nothing. If you think compared to, say, a cello or any string instrument, they've got a massive resonating chamber. Whereas, I mean, on any of the winds, really, we've just got this tiny column of air.
Yeah.
So that's really got to come from within.
It's creating that space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, which is not always the easiest thing, especially, and that's the first thing to go when you're tense. And so actually just relaxing, finding the resonance in your own body, even if you are nervous and your inclination is always just to go.
Yeah.
And then to just, you know, find a way. And I think that's the one thing that helps me the most, actually, is just thinking of, you know, how to get that relaxed breath and the relaxation to actually make the sound and the effortless sound that singers can produce as well.
Yeah. Have you ever had an epiphany in your playing, or has a teacher ever said something that has changed your playing overnight, or something like that?
Well, I don't think I've ever had something that completely revolutionised my playing in one night. I mean, I wish I had.
If only.
But something that really stuck with me is something one of my teachers told me. This was Gareth Davis, who is the principal flautist of the LSO, and a fantastic teacher, one of many, many fantastic teachers I've had. I've been really lucky. He basically taught me not to just aim to be a flute player, but to aim to be a musician. Not to just get caught up on those individual technical aspects of, you know, mastering your instrument and being a flautist, but actually when you're playing music, if you take that bigger picture, what you're actually trying to do is, you know, communicate music to someone. And what we're really trying to do is connect with an audience and make people feel emotion, and that's so much more important than thinking, oh, you know, how perfectly did I phrase off that tiny individual note, or you know, how
getting bogged down in technical stuff.
Exactly. And there's so many things, especially if you're working on a particular issue, and you can start to think that the whole performance relies on that, and
it's the big picture, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, obviously all of those things add up to being able to communicate that musical message, but actually I feel like that as an aim for life, you know, is what I would now go for, is that I would want people to think of me as a musician first and a flautist second.
Have you ever had to deal with rejection?
Yes.
I don't know why I thought I'd ask you this to musicians, so they're like,
Yeah, I think if you haven't dealt with rejection, maybe you've just not applied to anything, and you need to put yourself out there a bit more. So much. Especially when you're a student and you're that stage where you're starting to apply for things, you know, auditioning for awards, for competitions, for funding, and then starting to audition for jobs and orchestras. I mean, I think you've just got to expect to go through a lot of that. And if you don't, then great for you, but that's not normal. You know, I developed a rule for myself, which was that after I got rejected for something, you know, didn't get something that I was really hoping I would, I was allowed to grieve that for 24 hours. And it was like, okay, 24 hours, you're allowed to feel sorry for yourself, wallow, you know,
have a cry.
Eat all the food.
Eat the food,
And because I think that is important. You can't just pretend it doesn't affect you.
I think when it means so much to you as well.
You
have to acknowledge that, don't you?
Exactly. We get so emotionally attached, and I think a lot of musicians attach a lot of their sort of self-worth and value to their playing.
Identity.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
It feels like it's a real part of you. So it's painful to get rejected. Like we talked about, the only way of really getting used to doing auditions or getting over your nerves for a lot of people is just to do it again and again. And like I had a year, I think I applied, within the space of about 2 months, I applied for about 7 orchestral, not orchestras, but orchestral schemes, or like summer orchestras. And
is this at college, when you were at college?
This was when I was at college, and I got rejected from every single one. And I mean, obviously, that wasn't a great time, but actually, then the next auditions I did, which were for actual jobs, then I started getting trials, and that was only about 6 months before I then got a trial for my what's my
that you've
current
got
job?
now. Yeah.
And I think, well, I mean, that was completely miserable at the time, but I'm sure I would never have got anywhere in any professional audition I did if I hadn't had the experience of doing all of those.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, it's remembering that music is about more than other people's opinion of you, you know, and I think any rejection can feel really like, right, that's it, I'm absolutely rubbish and I'll just give up. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's just one person or one panel,
Yeah.
what they thought of you compared to, you know, your own
Yeah.
opinion yourself. That's really
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. Great. That's a really good philosophy, actually. I like that. 24 hours.
24 hours. It works.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have the bit of grieving it, but then just being like, I'm going to pick myself up now and, you know,
Decision making
get back
time.
on it.
Yeah. Good. Any advice you'd give to young professionals or people starting out in their career or aspiring musicians?
Yeah, I would say get to know music and get to love music and find out, you know, what it is that you do love and what kind of repertoire and, you know, is it orchestral, is it chamber music, is it lieder, or is it, you know, that sort of thing. I think it's really important not to just get caught up in technical perfection on your own instrument, because actually, if you've got a real passion for music, firstly, that will last you a lifetime and bring you more satisfaction than anything else could. And secondly, that will completely help you pursue your goal of becoming a professional flautist, if that is what you want to do, because there's really nothing that can compare, and that really comes across in people's playing when they just love that music.
Yeah.
And if you don't love the music, don't become a professional flautist. There's enough out there.
Yeah.